Let us turn our attention to one of the things that was a big part of the conversation yesterday in Washington, D.C. And, of course, the president was having a joint press conference with the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. And one of the questions that came up was Benjamin Netanyahu's visit. In the context of these negotiations, the ongoing nuclear negotiations,
we now know enough that the issues are no longer technical. The issues now are, does Iran have the political will and the desire to get a deal done?
Well, we're going to get closer to that deadline each day, and we want to get a sense of if there is hope or not. Joining us now is Behnam Taleblu, who is with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, a contributor to the FDD Rapid Response Research Team. You can tweet at follow FDD. That's actually what the Twitter handle is, at follow FDD, and he joins us now. Behnam, thank you for being on the program today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Any surprises yesterday in what you heard the president saying?
Not necessarily. The president reiterated a long-standing line that was existing within the intelligence community that the central issue remains Iran's political will to do so. We've seen across three administrations a slide in U.S. red lines with respect to Iran's nuclear capabilities, first reactors, then enrichment, now technical capacity, and he seemed to cap it at technical capacity, which seems to be a bit of a Washington consensus.
Now, the idea that has been thrown around here in Washington, D.C., President Obama has said we do not need to have any more sanctions, even conditional sanctions at this point in the negotiations. Those who would actually favor sanctions or additional sanctions, even the conditional sanctions, that would be that if Iran does not meet a deadline. They say that there's no reason why we can't move ahead with this. Now, Democrats have backed off on that position. Bob Menendez, who is the former chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, has backed off a bit on that, but some Republicans are still pushing this. Fair or not to say that imposition of sanctions, even conditionally, would somehow affect the negotiations that are ongoing?
I'm of the opinion that conditional or specifically deadline sanctions, which would be triggered only upon not reaching a comprehensive nuclear accord by the second extension, which would be June 30th, 2015, would be actually quite a bit fair, and it would support the P5+1, specifically the western side of the P5+1, in enhancing their negotiating leverage. We've seen throughout the entire time the Joint Plan of Action, or the JPOA, which was the deal agreed to in Geneva in November 2013. The whole time that was in duration, the U.S. Treasury Department and the U.S. State Department enforced existing nuclear sanctions, and Iran continued to threaten that it would walk away from the table, but in fact it never did, because it in fact stands to lose more from walking away from the negotiating table, which we've learned about their negotiating posture over the past decade, than the United States or the P5+1.
There is something you have written about recently that I think calls into focus or brings into focus one of the challenges here. You note that the Islamic Republic's vision of a worldwide civilizational conflict, and equally important within Islam itself, helps explain the diplomatic failures of the past and pitfalls of the future. Maybe you can explain that a bit.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that was part of a larger piece on this phenomenon that Iran fears called American Islam, which actually has more to do with the regional countries, specifically Muslim countries which oppose Iran, be it Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, Turkey, for various different reasons, be it security, political, military, economic, or ideological. And Iran has lots of competition on all those fronts in its immediate backyard, and many of these countries oppose an increasingly nuclearizing Iran. And it's important to note that Iran faces these challenges on many of these fronts, and it's not a smooth ride. Iran has sectarian bridges to overcome, ethnic bridges to overcome if it seeks to actually impose this sort of regional hegemony that its revolutionary founding ideology contains within it. And it's crucial to note that Iran will not be unopposed in this quest. So therefore, diplomacy, which is absolutely in the national interest of the United States vis-a-vis Iran, will have to take that into consideration.
And one of the other things you've written about that I find fascinating is the different approach to Syria that the U.S. has taken compared to Iran.
Absolutely. While we have come to agree on another sort of Washington consensus that the Obama administration may have opted to step away or shy away from its own red line vis-a-vis chemical weapons and striking the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad in an attempt to gain favor with Iran, we are, or at least I am of the analytical opinion that in order to showed resolve to the Islamic Republic, it should have in fact done so, and demonstrating a willingness to risk some sort of conventional conflict in a separate theater, because the Islamic Republic of Iran has been ascendant across numerous theaters, be it Iraq presently, Syria as of 2012, Lebanon as of the 80s, and this is a regional conflict as well as a technical nuclear conflict, which unfortunately in the past couple of years the United States has stovepiped from Iran's nuclear considerations from the rest of its regional aspirations.
Having remembered, and although it was under in very objectionable circumstances because of what the Shah had done to the people of Iran, but still I wonder, and I remember when there was actually a relationship between the two nations, and it is a country where the United States could only benefit if we actually had normalized relations with Iran, and I wonder if it's even possible in your mind.
That's one of the greatest ironies and, in fact, tragedies of the U.S.-Iran relationship, that of many of the Muslim polities, the Islamic polities in the Middle East, be they led by an autocratic government, a military government, a secular government, or a religious government, the Iranian people themselves have more in common with the national interests and the values of the United States, American norms, and U.S. citizens than the vast majority of the Muslim Middle East, in my humble opinion. It's only the government, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the regime, that has forestalled that national interest of the Iranian people in an attempt to recreate its revolutionary ideology from 1979, whose 36th anniversary, which I believe is tomorrow, has separated the U.S. from Iran in terms of strategy, and continues to need that foreign enemy in order for its revolution to endure.
Well, I appreciate you joining us this morning, making a little more sense of it, and we'll see exactly how these go. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you for joining us on POTUS.
Thank you so much, Tim. My pleasure.
Behnam Ben Taleblu is with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, a contributor to the Rapid Response Research Team, and has written. We will link some of that on our Facebook page, facebook.com/POTUSPolitics. The Twitter handle, by the way, is @FollowFDD.